This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams, and faith-focused feature stories with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
Hello again. Welcome to the broadcast. We've got a winter thaw on the way. Not today, not even tomorrow, but starting Saturday, the trend will be our friend when it comes to warmer weather. While the break from the brutal cold is welcome to many, it will also pose a threat in the great outdoors. After weeks of freezing temperatures, we'll be flirting with 50 degrees toward the middle part of next week. Coast Guard Captain Wyatt Davis says rivers, ponds, creeks, and streams will become a public safety risk once that happens.
No such thing as safe ice. What was good the day before might not be that good today.
Davis says, word to the wise, if you're near any body of water toward the second half of the upcoming President's Day weekend,
avoid ice that has snow on top of it. Avoid ice around inlets and outlets of large bodies of water. Avoid any kind of ice near current water, such as rivers and creeks.
Another problem many homeowners are facing during this winter thaw is busted water pipes. Plumbers we spoke to are responding to an average of 10 calls a day as the cold loosens its hold on the Northeast. Your money up next. It is tax season, folks, and experts say there are a number of savings to be had in both New York and Pennsylvania. New tax laws mean bigger refunds for millions of families.
There, in the new tax legislation, there's a lot of beneficial items in there that are going to help people.
That's certified public accountant Maria Snyder. She says the new tax code this year includes greater deductions for seniors, a boost in the child tax credit, no tax on tips, and tax relief on overtime pay as well. Minnesota's massive fraud scandal is front and center on Capitol Hill today. State Attorney General Keith Ellison and Congressman Tom Emmer are among those testifying before a Senate panel. Weak oversight in the state has been blamed for about $9 billion in fraudulent spending on state welfare and social programs. The U.S. House has passed a massive election integrity overhaul despite opposition from all but one Democrat. The Save America Act prevents non-citizens from voting in federal elections. Texas lawmaker Henry Cuellar was the only Democrat to support it. GOP Congressman Pat Phelan.
83 to 84% of any legitimate poll says that Americans approve of voter ID. They accept it. They think it's a good idea.
Democrats have attacked voter ID as being tantamount to voter suppression. Republicans argue it's necessary after the influx of millions of illegal immigrants led into this country during the Biden administration. New clues in the hunt for Nancy Guthrie. The FBI has a pair of black gloves found on a highway about a mile from her home in Tucson, Arizona. The 84-year-old mother of Today Show host Savannah Guthrie disappeared February 1st and hasn't been seen or heard from since. Crime expert Charles Marino.
At this state of the investigation, there's going to be ups and downs for sure. Hopefully this is going to be an up and get them closer to a resolution.
Cops have gotten more than 18,000 tips in the 12 days since Nancy Guthrie went missing. There's mounting criticism over the FAA's decision to close the airspace over El Paso, Texas, a city of about 1 million people. That government order was rescinded Wednesday, just hours after it took effect. The FAA had ordered a ground stop for 10 days at the airport so a nearby military base could practice shooting down drones. Correspondent Chris Van Cleve.
It appears the FAA did not tell other agencies it would close the airspace, kicking off a firestorm of finger-pointing. Congresswoman Veronica Escobar represents El Paso.
That is not the way that the federal government should operate.
Things got heated in a House hearing yesterday featuring Attorney General Pam Bondi.
Don't tell me. No, I did.
The AG was grilled over her handling of the Jeffrey Epstein investigation.
This has been around since the Obama administration. This administration released over 3 million pages of documents.
One Democrat asked the AG to turn around in her seat and apologize to some of Jeffrey Epstein's victims who are sitting behind her in the audience. Bondi would not, calling that political theater.
Didn't ask Merrick Garland anything about Epstein, not once. When he was
weak sauce.
And also,
House Speaker Mike Johnson thinks the AG handled herself well.
Obviously, Pam Bondi said it well. They turned it into a circus. These are unserious people, and they demonstrate that with their antics in the committee hearings now, which have really turned into theatrics, as she said.
Democrats accuse Bondi of providing legal cover for President Trump in regards to the Epstein case. Energy Secretary Chris Wright has become the highest-ranking member of the Trump administration to visit Venezuela.
I bring today a message from President Trump. He is passionately committed to absolutely transforming the relationship between the United States and Venezuela to make the Americas great again.
His trip to Caracas comes just a month after that daring raid by American commandos that snatched former Venezuelan strongman Nicolas Maduro and his wife from their bed in the middle of the night. They're both in New York right now, awaiting trial on drug trafficking charges. A Ukrainian skeleton racer at the Winter Olympics has been disqualified for refusing to stop wearing a helmet with images of the war dead from back home. The IOC deemed it a political statement as the war rages on. February 24th will mark the 4-year anniversary of that war. Still to come on the Noon Report for Thursday. Kev says warmer days lie ahead. Settlement reached in the Tops supermarket massacre, and a lesson on slavery turns into a lawsuit in Leroy, New York.
Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Williams calling for a chilly afternoon. Still some lake flakes for some. We'll have forecast details coming up in 10.
All right, thank you, Kevin. Let's check the stories making news across New York and Pennsylvania. Today marks the 17th anniversary of one of the darkest days in Western New York history, the crash of Colgan Air Flight 3407. Here's Family Life's Dee Haley.
The flight from Newark, New Jersey to Buffalo, New York ended when the plane crashed into a home in Clarence Center. Lawmakers introduced air safety legislation yesterday ahead of the tragic anniversary. U.S. Representatives Tim Kennedy and Nick Langworthy have introduced the Safe Flights for Passengers and Crews Act to enhance safety standards for charter airlines. In a statement released yesterday, the lawmakers said the bill will close a loophole that allows certain airlines to operate under lower safety standards than other commercial airlines. Dee Haley, Family Life News.
Thank you, Dee. A settlement's been reached with one of the gun makers linked to the Top supermarket massacre in Buffalo.
Soon after the racist attack, my office filed a lawsuit against MEAN, M-E-A-N, Arms, a gun accessory manufacturer, for its role in helping the shooter possess an assault weapon in violation of New York's SAFE Act.
Attorney General Tish James says the gunman used a removable magazine lock that converted his rifle into an assault weapon. This deal with MEAN Arms means the families of the shooting victims will be getting $1.7 million.
No amount of money can ease their pain, but we hope that by holding this manufacturer accountable, we can offer the people of Buffalo some measure of comfort in knowing that those responsible for such acts of hate and violence will not go unpunished.
The May 14th, 2022 racially charged shooting resulted in the deaths of 10 people. 3 others were wounded in that attack. A Carlisle, Pennsylvania man is facing charges for sending a threatening message to Governor Shapiro. Cops say George Brown Jr. posted that message online, and it contained the following statement, quote, "I plan on stalking and hurting your family," end quote. He repeated that threat twice, adding the phrase, metaphorically speaking. Brown says it was meant to get the governor's attention over complaints he had about conditions at the Cumberland County Prison where he had spent some time. The governor last year had his home in Harrisburg firebombed by an arsonist while he and his family were asleep inside. Governor Shapiro's just signed a law making cursive writing instruction mandatory in Pennsylvania's public and private schools.
Cursive isn't just historical, it's practical.
bill.
That's the bill's sponsor, Republican Representative Dan Watrow. He says cursive writing helps prepare students for life.
I truly believe that. From signing checks to legal papers to adding a personal touch to your letters, cursive just remains relevant in everyday life.
Pennsylvania joins 24 other states in bringing back cursive writing at school. A lesson on slavery has turned into a lawsuit against the Leroy School District in western New York. Lowell Rose with 13 Wham has more.
Tovia Pohl says her daughter came home upset back in September after taking part in a class activity about sharecropping and slavery. The district says the activity involved pretzels to show the contract negotiations for sharecropping and the cycle of poverty it caused for African Americans.
An investigation found the teacher responsible for that lesson did not violate DASA, the Dignity for All Students Act.
She called herself the slave owner and she called the class the slaves, and then she would show us how the slaves would have to pay her, they would get paid for doing work in the field, but they'd never get to keep their money.
That's 13-year-old Tayana Young, an 8th grader at Leroy, the only black student in the classroom during that lesson.
I'm upset because I like learning about my culture and the backstory. I just don't like learning about the negatives. Our school only teaches us about the negatives of Black history. They don't teach us about the positive stuff.
That student's mom accusing the Leroy district of trivializing slavery. The New York Civil Liberties Union is investigating. After 2 Republicans dropped out, a third member of the GOP has now entered the race to represent the 22nd Congressional District in central New York. Business owner and combat veteran David Hollenbeck is looking to unseat incumbent Democrat John Mannion in November. Hollenbeck says his campaign will focus on energy independence, lower taxes, secure borders, and constitutional rights. The 3-day New York State Republican Convention ended yesterday with the nomination of Nassau County Executive Bruce Blakeman for governor. He'll challenge incumbent Democrat Kathy Hochul for her job in November.
This is about comparing my record of success to Kathy Hochul's 4 years of failure.
Blakeman says one-party rule has decimated the Empire State.
Taxes are soaring. Crime is rising. Businesses are leaving the state in record numbers.
President Trump made a surprise appearance at the convention yesterday, appearing in a video in support of Blakeman. No Republican has broken the Democrat stronghold in New York since George Pataki was elected to a 3rd term as governor way back in 2002. Sports next. We call it the 2-minute drill, right here on the Family Life Noon Report.
Good afternoon, I'm Randy Snavely. Bob, Team USA picked up 5 more medals in competition yesterday at the Olympic Games. Highlighting the haul, speed skater Jordan Stoltz. He set an Olympic record while winning the gold medal in the 1,000 meters. In the ice dancing finale, the U.S. team of Evan Bates and Madison Chock won their 2nd medal of the Games. This one a silver as they came in 2nd place to the team from France. Liz Lemley, in her first Olympics, won gold in the women's moguls. 9 more medal events are scheduled for today. On to the NBA, the New York Knicks demolished the Philadelphia 76ers just 2 days after losing a tough overtime game to Indiana. Jose Alvarado scored a season-high 26 points. Mikal Bridges added 22 to lead the Knicks to the 138-89 rout. Karl Anthony Towns finished with 21 points and 11 rebounds. The Nets couldn't solve the Indiana Pacers either, as Brooklyn lost a 115-110 decision to them. Elsewhere, the high scorer for the night was Julius Randle of the Minnesota Timberwolves. He poured in 41 points to lead Minnesota to a 133-109 rout of the Trailblazers. Charlotte edged Atlanta 110-107. The Cavs dominated the Wizards 138-113. The Magic fell to the Bucks 116-108. Boston handled Chicago 124-105. Detroit beat Toronto 113-95. The Clippers clipped the Rockets 105-102. Miami 123, New Orleans 111. The Thunder blew out the Suns 136-109. The Kings lost to the Jazz 121-93. Denver knocked off Memphis 122-116, and the Spurs got the better of the Warriors 126 to 113. That is a look at sports.
All right, thanks, Randy. Still to come on the Noon Report. House passes election overhaul. Bondi hearing gets personal. And where in the world is Nancy Guthrie?
Welcome to Breakpoint, a daily look at an ever-changing culture through the lens of unchanging truth. For the Colson Center, I'm Thaddeus Williams. The leading cause of death in 2025 was not heart disease or cancer. In fact, it's something entirely preventable. According to the World Health Organization, 73 million humans died at the hands of a greedy abortion industry worldwide. An argument you've probably heard before is often used to justify this mass genocide. The preborn are merely a clump of cells, and therefore don't have the same right to life. The clump of cells rhetoric only works if we practice one of four forms of deadly discrimination. First, sizeism, which says I have more of a right to life than a preborn because I'm bigger. But as leading ethicists point out, the underlying science is clear. At fertilization, a sperm, a male sex cell, unites with an oocyte, a female sex cell. Each of them ceases to be and a new entity is generated. This is why it is correct to say that the developing human embryo is not, quote, a potential human being, whatever that might mean, but a human being with potential. The second form of discrimination is spacism. I have more right to live than a preborn human until they are outside the mother's womb. However, the only difference between a baby 5 seconds prior to and a second after birth is space, the location, which is an arbitrary foundation for personhood. Third is what we could call self-sufficiencyism, which says a human has no right to live if he or she cannot yet survive independent of the mother's body. Yet, a premature baby viable in Los Angeles hospitals may not be viable in the Amazon rainforest, given the availability of life-sustaining technologies. The level of technological sophistication in a given society seems an indefensible criteria for when human rights apply. And as a Christian perspective, considering a life worthy of life only when it can self-sustain is exactly backwards. The more dependent, the more vulnerable, the more helpless a human being, the more we should do to protect it. Fourth is sophisticationism. A human's rights only kick in when the brain becomes sophisticated enough to experience conscious states like pain. But this confuses harm with the capacity to feel harm. If I'm under heavy sedation, I'm still harmed if someone cuts my arm off, regardless of whether I'm consciously aware of that harm. And so are millions of tiny humans who have their lives snuffed out at the hands of abortionists, millions of which we must acknowledge can feel pain. Society would hopefully zealously oppose saying some lives aren't worth living because of their skin tone, social status, or sex. Differences in size, space, self-sufficiency, and sophistication should never override a human's right to exist. Christians must stand against the dark and deadly logic of Lebens und Virtus Leben, especially right now, where the commitment to the unborn is being tested by political loyalties. Our commitment must be unwavering, uncompromised, and kept a priority. The fundamental truth is that all life is worth living, and that's the bedrock of any healthy and flourishing civilization. For the full expose of the 12 Holocausts of 2025, please follow the Shed and Beam podcast on YouTube. For the Colson Center, I'm Thaddeus Williams.
Thanks, Thaddeus. Outside we go, Kevin Williams.
Here is your family life weather forecast for this afternoon. A good deal of cloudiness with flurries. There'll be another inch or two of lake fluff southeast of Lake Ontario. High temps 20s to near 30. Tonight, a few leftover flurries early. Otherwise, partly cloudy skies. Low temps around 10. Tomorrow, some sun will emerge. High temps near 30. A touch of snow for some tomorrow night and early Saturday. Later Saturday, a bit of sun with high temperatures in the 30s.
Thank you, Kevin. This is the Noon Report. I'm Bob Price. Lots to get to Thursday, February 12th. It's been 12 days now since the disappearance of 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie, the mother of Today Show host Savannah Guthrie. A pair of black gloves were found yesterday along a road about a mile from her home in Tucson, Arizona. Police have gotten 18,000 tips since Nancy Guthrie was reported missing from her home back on February 1st.
There's a lot of leads in there that
aren't going to be legitimate, but there's some that absolutely are, and that's what they're going to be focusing on.
The FBI is now offering a $50,000 reward for information that would lead to a break in this case. A U.S. military test led to the abrupt closure yesterday of the airspace around El Paso, Texas. The FAA halted operations at the airport, too, saying the closure would last 10 days. Turned out to be more like 10 hours. That airport and the airspace around it has since reopened, and now many are demanding answers in El Paso. Political theater on display in the U.S. House yesterday when Attorney General Pam Bondi testified about the Jeffrey Epstein case.
Oh, you want to go there, Attorney General?
Things got so heated, one lawmaker actually got up and left the hearing. Several of the victims of Jeffrey Epstein sat behind Bondi during the hearing.
I am deeply sorry for what any victim has been through.
But when Democrat Pramila Jayapal asked Bondi to apologize for the DOJ's handling of the Epstein case, Bondi refused.
Will you turn to them now and apologize for what your Department of Justice has put them through?
I'm not going to get in the gutter for her theatrics.
The Attorney General wondered aloud, where was this outrage when President Biden was in office? She argued he had 4 years to do something about the Jeffrey Epstein case, and did not. The U.S. House has narrowly passed a GOP-backed voter ID bill. Democratic Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries thinks Republicans are trying to influence elections.
Republicans are clearly on the wrong side of every single issue, which is why they are getting crushed electorally. This is a desperate effort by Republicans to distract. The so-called SAVE Act is not about voter identification. It is about voter suppression.
But House Speaker Mike Johnson says requiring proof of citizenship in order to vote is not an unreasonable request.
Americans need an ID to drive, to open a bank account, to buy cold medicine, to file government assistance. As is noted by the leader, you even need an ID to attend events of most Democrat politicians and even the Democrat National Convention. So, why would voting be any different than that? They can't answer that question.
Polls show as many as 80% of Americans support some kind of voter ID. The U.S. House has voted to overturn President Trump's tariffs on Canada.
6 Republicans broke with their party and voted in favor of the Democratic measure to roll back the levies.
On this vote, the yeas are 219 and the nays are 211. The joint resolution is passed.
Kevin Kiley of California was one of the Republicans.
We have an existing free trade agreement with our neighbors to the north and the south, which I think makes the 35% tariff here a little more problematic for folks.
The resolution's passage is largely symbolic. It could be vetoed by President Trump if it clears the Senate.
Correspondent Cammie McCormick. For the first time in nearly 90 years, Gallup will no longer publish approval ratings for presidential candidates. Gallup polls were once considered the top barometer for measuring the favorability of political figures. Gallup says it remains committed to polling on the issues, just not the individuals that shape our politics. A GoFundMe page set up for the family of late actor James Van Der Beek has already earned more than $1 million in less than a day. The Dawson's Creek star lost his battle with colon cancer yesterday. Van Der Beek leaves behind a wife and 6 children. He was just 48 years old. This is the Noon Report, a Thursday edition on Family Life.
This is Faith Under Fire. We take you straight to the front lines of religious battlegrounds. I'm your host, news anchor Sarah Harnish. With me today, Alliance Defending Freedom Senior Counsel Matt Bowman. We're talking pharmacist rights. A few weeks ago, quietly, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services made a huge decision that affects the religious freedom of tens of thousands of pharmacists across America. This wasn't a court ruling. It was an order directly from the department that oversees our health system across the country. So, Matt, can you tell me what happened with this decision?
Well, this dates back to the Biden administration trying to force all kinds of people around the country to be involved in abortion after it got upset when the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade. Right after that decision in 2022 was the Biden administration, using federal agencies, including the one I used to work at, Health and Human Services, decided to start sending letters around the country telling doctors, pharmacists, hospitals they need to be involved in abortion. And one of those letters was a letter to all the pharmacies in the country saying, you need to both stock and dispense drugs that can cause early abortions.
From a pharmacist background, explain what that would look like. If we have an edict like that coming from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, what would a pharmacist have to do?
Well, they'd be forced to choose between violating their faith or even their just conscientious respect for human life on the one hand, and stocking and dispensing drugs that patients are receiving in order to destroy a young unborn child in the first weeks of life. Bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. do not have the right to tell pharmacists around the country that they have to be involved in abortion just because you don't like what the Supreme Court ruled on in D.C.
And what's pretty spectacular about this isn't a court ruling. This is an edict that came down from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. It's huge. I didn't hear much about it, if anything, on mainstream media. Why is this such a big deal?
This is really important. In our lawsuit, the first stage was that the Biden administration tried to ask the judge to dismiss our case, to say we're perfectly allowed to order pharmacists around the country to dispense abortion drugs. And our judge issued a great ruling. He said, I'm not going to dismiss this case. You guys have basically politicized the federal regulatory process. Congress didn't give you the right to issue these mandates, and I'm going to let this pharmacist move forward with his case. And what the Biden administration did at that point was pretty squirrely. They didn't repeal their own mandate. They kept it in place, but they kind of changed the words and muddied the water and said, well, we won't take the mandate away, but maybe we won't violate the rights of Christian pharmacies, and maybe we will, and we're not really sure. And so the whole situation was kind of in limbo for a while. So what was great about what happened a couple weeks ago with the Trump administration now running the Health and Human Service Department is that they just repealed this mandate completely. And they said, we are not in the business of telling pharmacies that they have to dispense and stock abortion drugs. Because of that, because of other reasons, other priorities that the Trump administration has of protecting conscience and religious liberty, they're going to take this mandate down entirely.
What happens now?
Hopefully, what we're going to see is that the Health and Human Services Department in the Trump administration is now going to head in the other direction. So I've been working at Alliance Defending Freedom for 19 years, but I took 4 years off and worked at HHS in the first Trump administration. And HHS has a division, and their sole job is to protect the consciences of healthcare professionals, doctors and pharmacists, and hospitals and clinics. And what we've seen in this first year is very encouraging. They have announced that they are investigating a lot of hospitals and healthcare institutions around the country that are violating the religious beliefs of people who just want to work as nurses and doctors and pharmacists. And we're hoping that they will be able to help rebuild a healthcare industry that is fully and broadly respectful of conscience and religious liberty and just basic ethics, so that people around America can go into the healthcare field. You can go to medical school, you can go be a nurse, you can go be a pharmacist, and you don't have to worry about whether you're going to lose your job because of your faith.
How would this change religious freedom in medicine? What could that look like?
I think it looks like two things. First of all, if you're a young person, you're deciding, I want to go to college, I want to go to my community college, I want to get an associate's degree in nursing or a lab tech, I want to go to medical school, I want to be a nurse, I want to be a pharmacist, a physical therapist. But once I get there, is this school, is this institution, and then all the entities that are out there, the big hospitals, as they hire me, are they going to give me a crisis of conscience when I go to work? Are they going to say, well, since you're here, either as a student or a trainee, you have to be involved in things like abortion and changing the sex of young children and all kinds of other things that are harmful to patients and that people shouldn't be forced to practice because they want to help people. And the other side of it is patients. Do you, as a patient, have the option to go to a doctor who shares your deeply held values, or a mental health counselor, or a nurse, or a pharmacy? And are you going to be able to have that choice of, I want to be able to go to someone who I can trust my kids' care to because I know they share my core values, they're not going to be hostile to those. And I think that that's the direction where we really want healthcare to go.
Learn more at adflegal.org.
All right, thank you, Sarah. The name of the program, Faith Under Fire. It comes your way every Thursday during the Noon Report or online anytime at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and FamilyLife.org.
Good afternoon. Here is your Family Life regional weather forecast. A brisk airflow off the lower Great Lakes has generated snowfall across our region. Several inches fell last night in areas south and southeast of Lake Ontario, and the flakes aren't quite through yet. But they'll be fading as we head through the afternoon. The chill will even moderate a bit as we head toward the weekend. For this afternoon, a good deal of cloudiness with flurries. There'll be another inch or two of lake fluff southeast of Lake Ontario. High temps 20s to near 30. Tonight, a few leftover flurries early, otherwise partly cloudy skies, low temps around 10. Tomorrow, some sun will emerge, high temps near 30. A touch of snow for some tomorrow night and early Saturday. Later Saturday, a bit of sun with high temperatures in the 30s.
Thank you, Kevin. Finally, today, no more pennies are being made. Maybe you've heard. And that makes today extra special. Family Life's Brian Query.
Many of us have been there. We find random loose change in our cars, couch cushions, on the floor, or on the street. And sometimes we pick it up. When you find a penny, many consider that to be a sign of good luck. Well, today is National Lost Penny Day, started in 1995 to recognize the importance of a penny, because when found, lost change can add up. The day has been connected with the birthday of Abraham Lincoln, not only because it's on his birthday, but because his picture has been on the penny since 1909. Since designed by Ben Franklin in the 1780s, billions of pennies have been minted. So today, look in the deepest corners of your sofa, jackets, and cars. You never know the treasures you might find. Brian Query, Family Life News.
All right, thank you, Brian. And that's our world, the world we live in. Thursday, February 12th. I'm Bob Price. Family Life News.
You've been listening to the Noon Report, heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.